It is Thursday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from the Elbow River Casino here in Calgary. It's been a fantastic week. It really has. And we're going to end big time. My good friend Sean Hope Ross, longtime strength and conditioning guru, to the stars. We'll talk to him. By the way, tomorrow I also see that my good friend Ryan Thowell is going to join us. We got lots of stuff going on, certainly lots to talk about. Yesterday, some of them, the superstars from time to time who join us, tried to phone yesterday, and it didn't happen. Because I guess we were not good at what we do. We were shit. Not today. I think we're going to get a call at some point from Darren Titian, so we look forward to that as well. Once again, brought to you by Bet Regal. We're going to use those numbers today. You want to know how that's going to work? If you go to my site, rawmikeRichards.com, there is a link. You are going to get bonused 40% of your original deposit offered this week by our good friends at Bet Regal. And we're going to use those numbers as Victor Newman actually is going to come in today. Victor Newman picks, CFL picks. They're good too. Today, well, there's one in particular I'm going to love, but they're all pretty good. So we'll get to that. As I guess we'll be saying it is a big week in Canada. I suppose you should always take pride in a National Open. And right now, as we talk about the RBC Canadian Open, this is what happens in the early stages. Of course, some of them just finishing up now at Glen Abbey. And they are scorching the course right now, the first groups that are in, including, well, you might know Smiley Kaufman. How did he come up with a God-given name like that? How do you know even if you're a baby? Smiley Kaufman, 6 under, as is James Hahn and Tyrone van Asweken, South African, all at -6. So they all scorched it at 66. KJ Choi is also in at 66 as we speak. At the time of this broadcast, obviously, if you've downloaded on iTunes or Google Play or you're listening on TuneIn, you're aware of these scores. Bubba Watson is 6 under with 1 hole to go. So we'll see how it ends up. Mackenzie Hughes, by the way, had a nice day shooting a 67 5 under. Nice first day for the Canadians. And yeah, but again, we've got such a long way to go. Nobody wins it on a Thursday. You can lose it on a Thursday, but you're rarely going to win it in a golf course that unfortunately at some point, like everything else in the world, going to be covered in condos. Because that's what I think the world needs. You know, every time I'm driving the city and I see those glass ambiguous towers that most people can't afford and half the buildings are empty, I said, you know what? We need more of those. That's what we need. Well, I guess if the demand's there, but does the demand have to be at one of the more storied golf courses that we have in this country? If you never had a chance to play it, Glen Abbey, designed by Jack Nicklaus, is just a beautiful old-style golf course in a very sort of, I would say in terms of its vegetation, it's towards the Niagara area. It's Oakville, but it's down in that area where it's just very lush. That's always been impeccable in terms of really the way they've looked after it. It looks like they're really going at the course today. I mean, shooting a 66, who knows what is eventually going to win this thing, but it's going to be a big number. If you were hoping for one of those tough but fair U.S. Open kinds of numbers, I don't think that's going to happen. Someone's going to win it, and it's going to be a big fat number, and I think that they have also pretty good weather for it. So look for a big score. We'll again follow this for the last day on Friday and cross our fingers for the Canadians. But it was funny, Jack Nicklaus, when he got up to address the crowd, talked about, and he goes, here's Mike Weir, who of course a great Canadian. I know him, and he of course has won the Canadian Open. No, is that right, Mike? Well, I just keep playing until you win it. He honestly, he just didn't know. Who cares? And I don't think if Mike Weir continued playing for another 1,000 years, he's probably not going to win it. Things that we can talk about here this morning before we get to Sean Hope Ross. You talk about the freak show that is the Ball family, and this isn't even really with LeVar. It's not even about Lonzo. It's about, is it LaMelo? Am I saying that right? LaMelo? Are we just throwing letters in front of names just to see if they work? LaMelo? Do you like it? Well, there was a high school basketball game between LaMelo's team and the other top recruit, and it was a spectacle. It was just crazy. And guess who liked it the best? It would be his dad, LeVar. Do people like the act? Do you like the act? Let's face it, there's a lot of boring in this world. Let's put a little caveat on this. If it wasn't for sometimes crazy town, guys like me would have nothing to talk about. Was Harold Ballard good for the Leafs? No. Great for me. Marge Schott, was she good for the Cincinnati Reds? No. Awesome for me. Fantastic. What old bag like that sticks her bony, gross, smoked, yellow, nicotine, gross fingers into mashed potatoes and eats it right in front of all the press? Marge Schott does. She's the best. How's it going, fellas? Who's the Puerto Rican playing second base? Watch the silverware. Uh-oh, those people are... God bless her. She's cacno, right? She's dead? Maybe she's not dead. Who knows? Because people tend to die around Marge Schott. Remember the umpire? She regifted, by the way, those flowers, regifted flowers to that family. Yeah, Marge Schott. You're watching RawMikeRichards.com on the dedicated YouTube channel. Remember, hit the little subscribe. We've done well on this. And if you're noticing something here in the broadcast today, what is, what is this? Beer. Yeah, I can do that now. And by the way, it's 11 o'clock, even Mountain Time, so don't be all pissy. I should be doing this more often. Maybe the shows would be better. Who knows? By the way, did you see publicly on Twitter the other day, Dougie Gilmore coming out with a beer, Killer Brew. You might be seeing that kicking around the station every once in a while. That's going to work out fine, which is a weird intro when you think about it. We're going to get to Sean Hope Ross in just a second. Now, we tried some phone calls yesterday. They didn't quite make it, and the strange thing was we weren't drinking yesterday, so it probably should have worked. And I know that Darren Titishan was trying to get through to me, and I don't know what he was calling about. We had Bruce Covington. We were talking about, was that him? Hello?
It's Dan Titishan, it's the Dutch.
Hey!
And I'm just calling to say congratulations on the new show. It looks fantastic.
Thanks.
I also understand that you're being in Calgary, so God knows what's going on. I know what happened to me. And here's a little story for you a lot of people don't know.
Okay.
Here is myself back in 1992. I'm with the big tuna, Bruce Covington.
Yeah, yesterday.
And we decided we're going to go get some pap. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And so we get Alan Pitts, who did not want to go, by the way.
No.
A great receiver back in the day, and he did so well, with Don Flutie as the quarterback.
Right.
I digress. We take this cab, and we go up to Red Bear, and I see this fat chick. A
fat chick. Okay, look, we got to run. This sounds like a great story.
Congratulations, and good luck with the ceremony.
Okay, thanks, Dutch. I appreciate it. I don't know what that story was all about. All I heard was Red Deer and fat chick. What are the odds of that? RawMikeRichards.com as I bring in my good friend Sean Hope Ross. Ladies and gentlemen, strength training, the lifting, the world's strongest man. There's nothing he can't do, and Sean, he's so great to hear. You can pull that thing up nice and close. We can even adjust it if you have to.
All good.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Although you kind of have a feeling of a large witness in a like I would say the OJ murder, but apparently no one cares anymore. He's walking around.
Well,
had he trained with you, maybe he wouldn't have gotten all this mess. That's all I got to say. So for people who don't know, Sean Hope Ross has been with the Calgary Hitmen. It's a bit of a big resume here. For 17 years, the team in the WHL that produced a lot of players. We'll get to just some of the names, but of course, he continues to work with those in the NHL and just really high-end athletes here in Calgary for the better part of, what are you saying, 17 years?
Yeah, I've been in Calgary, I guess, for 20. It would be 18 years now back in Calgary, and I've worked for the Hitmen for 17 of those years. So pretty rewarding. And I mean, when I first started, I had the Stampeders and trained a lot of the Roughnecks and and then a lot of the minor league teams here as well.
Now, when you get into something like this, and people say, "Well, I'm in pretty good shape. I was a former athlete," but there's so much that goes into, I would say, training the elite athlete. So it's not just about strength. That's part of it. But, you're talking about stamina, which means you're talking about, we're so big on talking about the core of an athlete, and then, of course, nutrition. I mean, it's pretty deep to what you have to do with each individual. And let's be honest, each individual is different. They're way different.
Absolutely. I was just talking this morning. An example is I trained Joe Colburn for about the last 15 years of his career, and everyone always said to him, "You're 6'6", you need to be 230 pounds." So it was always a struggle to make sure that Joe gained weight. And so every summer he was frustrated, and some guys just no matter how many calories they take in, they don't gain weight. So he would be taking in 10,000 calories a day, when we would chart it, and lose weight because his metabolism was that fast, and he was the fire every time he'd eat something, the fire increased, right?
Well, isn't it a bit of a misnomer in the guys you work with, or when I hear people say, and even looking at a William Nylander, and because they're not really grown men yet. I mean, they're still kids. Yeah. But sometimes people say, well, they've got to be this weight, this X weight, and I think, well, I am pretty sure that's a misnomer. That's not true.
It absolutely is, and to follow up on that, this morning I was training Adam Lowry of the Winnipeg Jets, and I had Adam weigh in today, and he weighed in at 209, and he's 6'5". And I said, "How you feeling?" And a lot of guys right away would go 6'5". Like in the past, you would look and you go, "He's 6'5". He's got to be at least 220 pounds, right?" Well, he takes his shirt off. You do his body fat. He's 10% and 209, and muscular and fit and strong and feels good. And he played 82 games in the NHL last year. Didn't have any injuries. And do you really want to change anything? Right, he doesn't need to gain weight just because he's 6'5", right? It's how you feel, and like you said previously, everybody's different.
Well, and we're in conversation with Sean Hope Ross here. It's now what? Sean Hope Ross Fitness? What are we calling it? Strength Conditioning here in Calgary. A lot of names have gone through, but you did mention Joe Colburn. His dad, Paul, was a very, very good athlete, and actually he was the starter for the
quarterback at
UFC. Yeah. So and it's a high performing family. Like even the girls were all scholarship athletes too, were they not?
Absolutely, yeah. All of them were. All three of the girls were basketball players at the university level. Mel went to Yale and did her undergrad at Yale. Claire stayed here in Calgary, and Lauren, Claire, and Mel are all great athletes themselves. So
I always thought it was unfair because when they talked about Joe and where he was going to be drafted, and there was these comparisons. Number one, he had to look like Jumbo, and right away I go, well, again, you're talking about body types. I mean, why is he supposed to be that way? And there was a knock against him because his dad was wealthy, and they thought somehow that would reflect upon his work ethic. Well, then you didn't know. Then you never saw what Joe did, and I thought that was really unfair.
You got to meet him, and you got to spend time with Joe, and I mean that's the automatic assumption that because he came from wealth, that he was asked when he was doing his draft interviews at the combine, he was asked more than once, why would we draft someone that was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and has never had to work? Right, and so a kid like that who would train with me for 2 hours in the morning, then go shoot pucks for an hour, then go to Pilates, and then skate in the afternoon, when most other kids, are skating maybe once a week, twice a week, and working out 3 times a week. He did extra to get to where he was. It was the opposite of what everyone said. Now,
of the names that have gone through, your training methods, there are a lot of big ones, but working so long with the Calgary Hitmen, there's also a lot of guys who've gone through the Dub that you've worked with. Of course, during my time, where it was Brandon Cozen, but Martin Jones as well. And, you had a lot of those guys, and I thought, you can see in some of them, I think Schultze as well, there's a lot of guys. When you look at some of the success that you see now in the NHL, and I'll start with a Martin Jones, because that's who I got to know quite well. Can you see it from even a perspective of their method of working out or their dedication and that kind of sacrifice? Does it translate necessarily into the NHL success? Can you look at each guy and say, okay, this guy doesn't work out as hard, just as a gifted athlete, but this guy has earned everything? Who's in the category of having to work for it and it shows? Who would you put in that category?
I mean, absolutely the guys that, usually the guys that put in the most effort. Obviously, they have to be talented to start with.
Who's a good example?
So a great example would be Andrew Ladd. Like Andrew Ladd, when he was with the Calgary Hitmen, I mean, at the age of 17, 18, he was training harder than anybody, always wanted to do extra work. And was gifted, but wasn't Andrew Ladd. I mean, he's made a hell of a career, by always being fit. He's a great leader, but skill-wise, I mean, he was never the most skilled player, but always played in the top teams. A guy like Ryan Getzlaff, who I had for 7 years, I think I had Ryan. Getz was so talented, hated working out, so you know.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me at all. And hear you say that.
Not. No, but he is talented enough. Like he was one of those guys that, you know, and when it came to fitness testing, he was a guy that, you know, up until as you get older, obviously, you know, as we both know, everything slows down and you're never going to be what you were when you were 20. But as when Ryan was young, I mean, he would lead every fitness test just on sheer ability, you know, without working hard to get it. Whereas a guy like Andrew Ladd worked his butt off to get there.
In conversation with Sean Hope Ross, once again, strength training coach here in Calgary, and continues to do so. Very, very busy. Probably difficult even to get some time with him, but it is available. What if someone wants to train? If someone watching this today, or maybe it's a dad, or maybe it's someone who has always thought about it, how would they go contacting you?
Best way is by email. I'm the worst for answering my phone just because I'm usually on the training floor, especially this time of year. Email is Sean, SEANHR, 22@gmail.com. So SeanHR22@gmail.com.
Okay, we'll get that out for sure. Also, in the time that I spent here in Calgary, I saw a lot of goaltenders, a lot of keepers going out, and I will say that when I got in the ring with Dale Cowboy Brown, which was awesome, then that first round was pretty good. The first round, but he made me do the legit 3 rounds. And what I found was, in the first 20 seconds of that second round, you talk about having to have cardio, I just started to fail. Like it was one of the worst moments I've ever had physically. And I ran a lot of track, but he still wanted me to punch, and then he started punching back. So I was being mocked by Justin Pogge and Jason LaBarbera. And I thought, yeah, you guys only did 1 round and weren't that good. Not really. And that was, wow, what a workout that was. But you had some keepers go through there, and of course they're all goofy. I mean, they're goalies.
Absolutely.
So Justin Pogge was there at that time. Justin LaBarbera.
So you would have
Jason LaBarbera.
Yeah, Jason LaBarbera, Justin Pogge. 2 summers there. Carey Price was there. Devin Dubnyk was with me for.
That's
Doobie
right,
was there for 10 years. He was on your show a few times.
That's right. Yeah.
What
a great guy. Always.
Awesome guy. And he moved out to Kelowna, and he's one of those guys I still text every week, talk to him every week. Curtis McElhaney, who just re-signed with the Leafs. I had Curtis right from Notre Dame College. I started training him at Notre Dame, and then had him right through for about the first 6 or 7 years of his pro career. And then right now, I wish I almost brought him with me today. I trained Barry Brust, and Brust. He's led his team in penalty minutes as a goalie in the KHL last year. He's a former Hitman player, but he's 34 years old, and an absolute character. Like you would love him.
Well, we have to do that sometime. I forgot about Doobie. Boy, I'll tell you, there's a guy who had the greatest attitude, worked so hard. In his time in Edmonton, where, of course, they didn't really believe in a lot of defense. Right. So each and every night it was about, really just trying to stop a wave of pucks. But, boy, a couple of years ago he came into his own, and I couldn't have been happy for that guy.
No, and I had him, since before he was drafted when he was playing in Kamloops. And so I've known him, his whole career. He's at my wedding. And, we've always been close. And one of those guys that the whole time he was in Edmonton, like you said, he got lit up every night. But his save percentage is always 90. He was stopping 93% of the shots, but he faced 60 shots and, so let in 5. But and then finally, things worked out great for him in Minnesota, and he hasn't looked back.
Now, when it comes to something that a conversation I get into often with either pros at the management level, coaches, sometimes athletes, but a lot of parents. I remember with Kelly Kissio talking about this, and that was the concentration on one sport for a kid that's of a given age. Let's say it's 12 or 13 or whatever it is now. There's got to be a cognizant decision on when you kind of go all in with your child. It's a tough call only because I think a lot of kids don't play enough other sports, and I know and then you go back and you look at all the guys that played lacrosse, that played soccer, that played baseball. A lot of times it's not football because the sports get played at the same time of the year. Like you got to almost separate. Yeah. But do you think, if you're going to decide that your child, daughter or son, can you give advice to those out there on what to look for? Because sometimes, parents are just overwhelming, and they say, okay, this summer you're playing hockey, you're going, you're dryland training, blah, blah, blah. They're making up the future for them as they go along. But at some point, how do you make the decision that your child should go all in, that your kid might be a junior A prospect or even better? Is it an age? Is it a body type? What is it for you? in that
a little
arena?
Bit of both, because the age or the body type. Because you'll see that the WHL draft, the kids are 14 years old. Well, you're drafting a 14-year-old kid that's just going through puberty, and you're kind of hoping that he turns out, by the time he's 16 years old, that he's going to be able to play for you. And so right at that age, you're looking at his body type, you're looking at his ability as a player, but you're judging him at the age of 14. So if he is drafted, that's a time where it's like, hey, I've got a team that's interested in me, and I better start focusing on hockey. But before the age of 14, like so many spring hockey, kids will start playing spring hockey, and so their hockey season ends. Spring hockey starts in March. They go right through the summer. There's no break from hockey. They don't play baseball. They don't play football. They don't do anything else. And it ends up being hockey all year round. And so many of those other sports are great cross-training. Right?
Is it too much? Like, is there a point where...
To me, it's too much.
It is.
And I flat out tell people that. Like, it's always been hard, because I've worked with organizations that, had, 20 spring hockey teams, and I'm supposed to promote spring hockey when I'm kind of like, your kid's 8 years old. Like, let him enjoy soccer, work on his footwork with soccer, which is going to help him in hockey in the long run anyways. Brent Sutter wrote an excellent article on, and people that watch you should look at it.
I'm a Brent fan, by the way. I think of the time that I spent here in Calgary, and probably of all the NHL coaches I've got to know, I think I probably knew him the best. And boy, I sure liked the way he looked at life. I just do. I was a huge fan.
Yeah, and I train his nephew Brody right now, and who's just signed with Winnipeg with the Jets. And we were just talking the other day about this exact thing, about when do you start too young? Because Brent's always been a proponent of playing as many sports as you can for as long as you can. I think back to when I was at Notre Dame and in high school myself, and Rod Brindamore was the captain of our football team. And then, the football season, they won a provincial championship at Notre Dame for Saskatchewan in football. Football season wasn't even over yet, and he was in junior hockey tryouts.
So Rod Brindamore, because as I said, it's very rare that you hear of a guy doing football hockey just because the seasons collide.
Absolutely, but he had a passion for it. But there's so many similarities between training wise, between a football player and a hockey player. They both want to be stronger. They both need footwork. Like, they both need speed. There's a direct correlation between off ice sprint speed and on ice. So as a football player, you want to be faster. Well, training to be faster as a football player is also going to help you on the ice. So there's so many things cross training. The biggest issue is getting injured. Right? You get injured playing football and you miss your hockey season.
Right, and that's why a lot of coaches don't see both. They have this adage, and coaches have for a long period of time, and that was, you can't teach speed. They've said for years that you can't teach speed. Now, that was back in the 70s, and was it Bill Bauman, Nike, and with that Oregon track team, where he started pulling guys behind a car. He had like literally like a rope.
Overspeed work.
And is this now a thought of there are ways to get guys faster?
For sure, there are ways to get guys faster. And even just working on biomechanics and proper skate. If you're talking hockey, proper skating, stride, and you can make people faster. But there are also people who have more fast twitch muscle fibers and who are just naturally quicker. A kid like you mentioned, Brandon Cozen earlier. Brandon Cozen, without training, if he hadn't trained, sport specific, and he trains with my brother, and Jeff's done a great job with him. Brandon would be fast and would be an elite level athlete probably without working out at all. So you'll see those people, but absolutely there is, I wouldn't have a job if you couldn't make people faster,
right,
through training.
Now, the pulling of like the hub, or what do they pull beside like a tire tractor or whatever, a tractor tire thing?
Tractor tires.
Yes.
Yeah, pulling. Yeah, that stuff. That exercise, actually, the pulling of it, and then you do sprints without. So it's like sprinting with resistance, and that way when you sprint without it, you're already driving that hard and pushing that fast. It's almost, even not looking at the science behind it, it's just common sense. If I'm used to running with a 1,000-pound tire and I'm pulling it, you take that tire away and I still try and drive as hard, it's going to make you faster.
Because some guys, I said the natural speed for guys who sometimes don't put that much work into it. I know Phil Kessel gets ripped all the time for his size, but the reality is, in a lot of his career, once he makes that half turn and starts going halfway up the ice, he's gone.
Absolutely. And he's very similar. A little bit bigger than Cozen, but that's the same thing. Like, he has that second gear that very few players have.
Like Nyquist, I think, is got some wheels. When I was here at the time, I think You look at a Matthew Lombardi. Matthew had some wheels.
I don't know if he's still playing.
I don't think so. I don't think Matthew.
He went over to Europe,
Yeah.
and I mean, he was crazy fast. But then there's the thing with guys like that have the wheels and are incredible skaters, like a Mason Raymond, but never translated into offense, right? Like, they can skate like the wind, but don't have the other, the other intangibles to go with it.
So when you take a look at, I said of all the years that you have done this, it's got to be gratifying, Sean, simply because, as you mentioned, there's that one level of, this is your job. Got to make guys faster, stronger. If they need some more meat on their frame, which I mentioned today,
Yeah.
it's really difficult. It's just not the number. And then there's an emotional attachment to it, I would think.
Yeah, I'm lucky because I take pride in what I do, and I've been doing this, since 1999 is when I started at Notre Dame, so almost 20 years. And before that, I was just a personal trainer. But working with athletes for that long, I have, over the last 3 or 4 years, I have guys that have trained with me for 16, 17 years. Mickey DuPont, Mickey's 38 years old and signed back. He's playing in Germany now. And he's played in the Spengler Cup for Canada, and he played, a handful of games for the Flames back in the day. Well, Mickey's trained with me now for 13 years, and, he doesn't look like he's going to slow down. Jeff Schultz has won a cup, played 400 NHL games from Lake Buena Vista here in Calgary. He's trained with me for 15 years. Joe Colburn's trained with me for 15 years. So I have a ton of pride in the results that they've gotten, but I also, I go to work every day just enjoying the
And you
people.
love it.
I love it. Love the people.
Now, you brought up something really interesting. We talked about yesterday the announcement of Willie Desjardins, or Desjardins. If you talk like that, I don't. I'm from Stouffville, Ontario. I lived in Calgary, Francais, whatever. So you've got that. You've got Sean Burke, and I see that Marty Brodeur is part of the management group. And then Dave King, who's awesome, right? I mean, every time Dave talks, it's like listening to a professor.
Absolutely.
I just could listen to it all day. And he started talking about the kinds of hockey players and where these guys are going to come from with the announcement of, the beginning of the Olympic team. Do you have any sort of connection with guys who might end up on that team who played in the Spengler, who play in Germany, who play maybe in the KHL, AHL guys? Where are these guys going to come from, and what do you think that team might look like?
It's actually really interesting because we've been talking about that since the NHL decided not to allow the players to go. We've talked about that a lot because like I mentioned before, not a lot of NHL guys live in Calgary anymore. Like, there's very few of them. So I have a lot of European pros that train with me. A guy like Barry Brust, he signed. He played in the KHL last year. He signed in Switzerland this year, actually to play for the Calgary Hitmen's former coach Mark French. And a guy like that, 34 years old, is an all-star. Like, this is his chance that he might get a chance to play at the Olympics. They had that Deutschland Cup that they do at Christmas time. And last year, 2 of my guys were on that team for Canada, right, at the Deutschland Cup. And those are guys that are legitimately going to have a chance to play for their country at the Olympics because of the NHL not going. So it'll be interesting. They're having, I guess, a couple of camps, like identification camps with those guys. 3 goalies were invited.
Well, because I'm looking at whoever they bring in. So, and we understand that the rest of the world is they're not going to have pros either, correct? So this is going to be a very different looking tournament. My question is for the Canadian hockey fan. Will you get up because it's in the what was it? I blew the name yesterday. Pyeongchang Chao. I don't know. Fuck. Why are you having it there? What, Red Deer was no good. Come on. Well, maybe Calgary gets it again. I don't know. Yeah. But I like so I'm going to get up at or stay up to depending on what your hours are like, 3 or 4 in the morning to watch this Canadian team play Latvia. Yeah, that's a push for me.
And me too. Like, and I drew a blank earlier, but like one of the goalies that was invited was Ben Scrivens, right? So Ben Scrivens was one of the 3 goalies. Justin Peters, who was in Carolina before. Like, those are the guys that are inviting to be your goalies, as opposed to Carey Price and Devin Dubnyk. And I mean, Doobie, like, he's sad about it because, although he has a legit chance of being on the Olympic team for the first time this year. Brodeur's gone. Doobie's he's played for Canada at so many of those tournaments, and Hockey Canada is fairly loyal to guys that have played for them before.
Yes.
So for Doobie, it's like, you're not going to the Olympics when logistically, like,
it's really sad to see. I'm glad you brought that up because I saw a clip with Connor McDavid, and again, they're still young. I mean, these are still young guys, and they've watched certain things, not only like the World Juniors, which obviously you got to participate in, and he's going to be one of the best pros, unless there's some sort of accident or something, God forbid, a health reason. that picture you saw of him with all those trophies in Las Vegas, get used to that picture. The only thing that will be different is the hairstyle is going to change over the years, like with Gretzky. I don't see it going any. And yet the look on his face in describing not being able to be on an Olympic team, I think he was crushed by it. I think he was.
I think they all are. Like it's. I don't think, well, when you talk to most of them, they're like, we'll go. Like up until a few months ago, it's like, oh, they'll be going. Like it was almost just accepted, like this NHL is kind of, pushing us to the brink, but we'll end up going, and now it's like kind of set in that it's, because the Olympics has turned into such a major event, for hockey, because it's the best hockey players in the world playing against each other, and that's the only time you see that.
The personal side of things, and it was interesting when I first heard that there was going to be a show called Hockey Wives. I was like, oh Christ, here we go, another wives of something. A lot of Botox, a lot of crying, a lot of Moet Chandon being poured, and then I watched the show, and it's not really that at all. In fact, it kind of shows really the inside of what you probably perceive to be a glamorous and perfect life isn't. And so there's Barb's living in the same neighborhood, the same house that I live in Calgary, and they're showing some pretty up close and personal things, and you realize, you're either sometimes you're going down, or you're being assigned, to an NHL team. Sometimes it's like, we're going to Germany, or we're going to the KHL, we're going to Russia. And just watching Barb's has traveled as much as any guy I think I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's tough.
It is, and with his two kids, and Barb's, he traveled, played as long as he did, but because Ryder has autism, his son.
That's right.
Cadet thought the family thought it would be best for him to stay in Calgary, and so he's doing, he's living in the States and playing hockey. The family stayed here in Calgary.
Where is he now?
And so he's at Calgary. He works with me with the Hitmen. He's our goalie coach. So when Darcy Wakaluk left last year and went to
Darcy,
the Hitmen hired Barb's, and he actually, I would have had him here this week, with me today, except he's doing some work for Hockey Canada at the U17s, evaluating goalies, and I mean he has a love for the game. He's always said that he'd stay in the game, and so he's our goalie coach now.
Fantastic.
It's awesome. See him every day almost.
Tell him I said hi, and I'll expect to see you next time. I'm going to be here every 3 months at the Elbow River Casino and other places, bugging people, trying to get into their fridge, seeing how much they got in their bar. And trust me, you think it's locked? I'll find a way in. I'll find it. Sean, so awesome to see you here. What a, one of the reasons that I loved Calgary and still do and always will so much is people like yourself. It's just, I think it probably comes across on the broadcast today, but there's a reason why it's so great to live in this city. It's the personal part of it. It's the emotional attachment you get, but it's also the high level of what goes on here, whether it's finance, God hoping that the oil and gas, gets back on track, and parts of it are the city's doing better, but it really, really is a magnificent place to live, and I think you're a huge part of that for me.
You're definitely missed here. I mean, as soon as I heard from Tim and I heard from you about coming on, it was like, you're every morning for a very long time. You're a big part of my life, and then the time that we spent together, it was special. Like you're I'm glad to hear that you're feeling better and you're on the mend and your health is better, and seeing you today is awesome.
Once that bag goes, I'm going back. I'm going to be ripped, jacked. I'm going to take heroin. I'm going to take steroids at the same time. I'll be skinny and big.
Perfect.
I'm going to be going to the French Maid. I'll be making it rain. All kinds of stuff going on for me. It's all good news, Shawnee.
Awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks. Thank you, Mike.
That is Sean Hope Ross joining us here at the Elbow River Casino. Mike Richards, as you know, the home of rawmikeRichards.com here in Calgary. I'll be back every 3 months. There's going to be some other stuff happening that I'm going to announce very, very soon that I'm thrilled with. So once again, subscribe to rawmikeRichards.com. If you do that, you're going to see Bet Regal, and that link is going to be your road to riches, because I'll be honest, when we start hammering on the gaming, myself and David Bastel, you know how that works. We get into the David Bastel foreplay. It's good. You'll enjoy it. Who doesn't like Dave Bastel foreplay? Russell? You love it. Okay, that just got weird. But the golden sex pics of golden... Sex pics of... Yeah. Anyway, of golden sex. I think it's... I don't know. There's golden sex in there somewhere. Also, today we're having a lovely... mentioned Dougie Gilmore going to come out with his Killer Brew. I think it's going to come out in the next couple of weeks. We'll probably have Dougie on the show and talk about that venture. But I mentioned Bet Regal because, quite honestly, we need some picks. So I think, are we going to have, is Victor's going to come in here very shortly, but we need Jade. Is Jade available? Because if Victor's going to make some picks, then he always needs someone very lovely. Jade certainly fits that bill. By the way, if I'm taking a look currently at the leaderboard, Bubba Watson finishes at a 6 under 66. Very strong day. Hudson Swafford. Well, Hudson. I say, looking good, Hudson. Feeling good, Richie. Hudson Swafford. What? Like, look, I don't pretend to know all the hundreds of guys who actually are on the tour. I'm not. Hudson Swafford, would you? By the way, the lovely Jade, who works here at the Elbow River Casino, officially, your title is what, Jade?
Marketing coordinator.
So we'll just have you move a little bit closely,
Sure.
a little closer.
Sure.
You are, I'm sorry, the marketing
Marketing
guru?
coordinator.
The coordinator. Yeah, because we know that maybe Scotty Roberts says something different, and I'm not a fan of that kind of talk. I don't think it's right. I got to be honest. I'm a very open-minded man. Now, how long have you worked here, by the way?
I've been with Elbow for 5 years now, with the overall company for about
Yes,
10.
for about 10.
10 years.
And you love it?
It is. It's fun.
And I'll be
Exciting.
honest, everyone who works here is great.
Yes.
I mean, sure, Scott Roberts, a little annoying. I don't really trust him. I don't turn my back when he's in the room. But this venture that we're doing here with RawMikeRichards.com is just exciting. In fact, I think we're also going to talk to some guys from Yuck Yucks when the show's over, because when I come back in October, I think I'm actually going to get on stage. I haven't done that in quite some time with all the other comics who join the show, like Jimmy the Bag and Rob Pugh, Darren Frost. We'll see, and maybe put on a big show in October.
Sounds exciting.
It,
Awesome.
It is very exciting. Now, speaking of exciting, well, let me just see if we have the right. Oh, here it comes. You ready for this? Here's excitement. Victor, did you want to give your picks?
Sounds
Well. I want to say something to you, Jade. You're damn lovely, you know that? I have a ranch in Okotoks. And I thought maybe after the show is over, we can go damn riding. What do you think of that?
the sunset too.
Maybe even get on the horses. That's a hilarious joke, all right? I just made that on the fly. You have a beautiful smile. You remind me of my daughter, Victoria.
Thank you.
Actually, that doesn't work out very well either, now that I think of it. The hell's the matter with me? But I will tell you something right now. I'm Victor Newman. You got that? And here come your picks. Your sexy picks. Your sexy CFL picks, all right? Let's start with the Edmonton Eskimos versus the BC Lions. That's a damn good game, maybe the game of the week. And I will tell you, I'm going to take the over, 54.5. These two teams can score. They score almost as much as me in Saskatoon. That's a joke right there, Jade. You can laugh if you want. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers against the Montreal Alouettes. I don't think that's a high-scoring game because Montreal does not score. That's more like Russell Graham in a strip joint. I'm going to take the under in the first half, under 25. That's what I see. And let me tell you something. When Victor Newman says that's going to happen, that's what's going to happen, all right? The Saskatchewan Roughriders versus the Toronto Argonauts. I'm going to take Toronto at +3, and it pays at 2. Have you ever been to Toronto, Jade?
No, I haven't actually.
Well, I will take you there. Miguel will come by in the limousine, and perhaps you and I could frolic. Do you like the CN Tower?
Sounds like a plan. Sounds nice.
It is big and long. Moving right along, the Calgary Stampeders versus the Hamilton Tiger Cats. This is going to be a disaster for Hamilton. I've said it all week. It is -13, and I'll tell you right now, that is a gift. Hamilton's going to get stomped once again. And the bad news for Hamilton when the game is over, they have to go back to Hamilton. That's another delicious joke right there for you, Jade. What do you think of that?
Thank you.
You're damn lovely. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And those are Victor Newman's CFL picks. Sexy.
Wow, that was I don't know. I don't know how he does it. I really That was very sexy. Thank you so much, Victor, for making those picks. And I see the lines have changed a little bit actually as Victor Noon was talking. So that is Bet Regal. So did we put that on the screen there? Yeah. Won't we put up there? Won't we show exactly what I'm talking about? That we use. So, is it coming up for us? Oh, there it was there just a second ago. You will go to my link, ronmickrichards.com. You will see a link that goes directly to Bet Regal. They're offering something very special all week long to all those that watch and listen to, download MikeRichards.com, the Richards Army, so to speak. Very easy to do, and of course, now with their association with InstaDebit, I will be honest, it makes it so much easier because if you used a service like Bet365, because of the license changes, not only can you not get an account there, but some of them are just kind of fading away from Canada. The beauty of Bet Regal is it's actually owned by a Canadian, but most of the guys that are part of it, they have worked with all the big offshore books for years, whether it's William Hill, whether it's Pinnacle. I mean, they're all big names, and now they're going to be over in the UK, so you're going to get the benefit of your ability in Canada. And sorry once again to U.S. residents, as you know, this is not available. Not my rules. You know, Justin Trudeau was really good. Maybe he just changed that. Instead of smiling on the cover of Rolling Stone and you got to read this article. It's unbelievable. It's like they are so in love with anyone who's not Donald Trump. And I get all the issues. I get all the problems. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the greatness of the president. Kind of think it's weird that he is the president. But what I think is the amount of hatred has pushed people into some weird areas. And I think the Rolling Stone magazine says for Justin Trudeau, it's too bad he wasn't our president. That has nothing politically at all with what is actually going on with the job that he's doing. But once again, I digress and talk about Bet Regal. So if you want to support the show and support us, that's what I hope you will do. And do it today. And also, of course, if you want to be a part of the Richards Army, ronmickrichards.com. Click on it, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also, don't forget, subscribe to Ron Mike Richards, the Facebook page. There's some very revealing photos, I think, on that a little bit. Here's one from Joanne today. Bummer, I was going to tune in to see if there were any more hot goldfish takes today. That's from the live feed. As you know, I got a little agitated, Russell, roast beef. Got a little upset. That goldfish slots game just got under my nerves. And I said to Russell today, because I got to be honest, even though we've been in a casino all week, and look at this. By the way, how many people thought that I did this all the time anyway? Raise your hands. Everyone? Yeah. Yeah, thanks. This is actually very nice today to do that. We're going to hit the slots a little later on today. Goldfish is going to hit it. There's some people over here who are working away. I don't know, maybe working's not the right term. It's not quite noon. Very busy here at the Elbow River Casino. Hoping that whether it's Zeus, that's one of the games, Zeus. Isn't there like Wild Wolf or something? Does that qualify as work? Probably not. People can define it. Maybe you think what I do isn't working. But I got to tell you, I think that's less. You're watching ronmickrichards.com. Mentioning beforehand not only what you heard Victor Newman when he talked about the CFL this weekend, but the Blue Jays having some fun with the Oakland A's. But right now it seems that, quite honestly, that this was an early game today, I guess, is it? Yeah, so they're losing currently in the bottom of the fourth, 3-1. But again, by the time you get this game could be over. But I think, quite frankly, it is over for the Blue Jays one way or the other, regardless of what happens here. I think it's interesting that, and I know we don't have a clip of it, the back-to-back home runs last night for the Jays to win. But we wondered if Milwaukee would be an engaging team if they go deep into MLB playoffs, or if they're even in it. Currently in the bottom of the fourth, they're losing 15-1. What's with the scores, by the way? Is it me? Are they kicking field goals when we're not looking? Because some of these scores are getting a little out of hand. Now, I know the pitchers have complained a little bit about the ball and just, its actual, the substance on top of it. Thus the Aaron Sanchez blisters and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think we're going back to the juiced ball time. But some of these scores, the only thing that's juiced, I think, is some of the players. So 15-1, that's outstanding. In NHL news, do you want to jump in, roast beef? Just the little roast beef corner. Just flick it and run into the screen. Let's see if we can do that. We've never tried that. It's kind of like action. Da 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 pa pa pa, and then flip it so the camera's on you. That's what you got to do. And all of a sudden, shasham da pa pow. Look at that. You don't get that everywhere. You don't get that everywhere. What are we making with some of the moves, including I believe it's Markov.
Oh yeah, Markov officially not signing back with the Montreal Canadiens. It was kind of expected, but they kind of announced it today, made it official that he is not going to be back with the team next season.
Yeah, so there's more. I mean, and again, this is not a huge surprise, but I think that it's interesting. If Jerome McGinley and Shane Doan don't sign with anybody, so contractually not obligated to an NHL team, they could play on the Olympic team. They
could. It'd be interesting, for sure. I don't know about Doan, just with, like we talked about the other day, with his 6 goals. The offense isn't quite there anymore. Hockey Canada actually did announce some pre-Olympic rosters to play in some tournaments that had some former NHL players. I can pull it up right here. Where is it? But there was some, like we talked about Brandon Cozen when Sean was on. He was one of the ones invited to that. There, as he said, Ben Scrivens. There were some, where.
See, because Brandon plays over in the KHL.
And actually does very well in the KHL. Yeah. Very well over there. I cannot find this art. Oh, here it is. Okay, so I'll pull up just some of the names. But Doan and Iginla weren't on it, I guess, because they're still looking for NHL contracts. And the one that we talked about yesterday that I was surprised wasn't on it was defenseman Chris Lee.
Right.
He wasn't on this list, maybe because they're expecting him to sign an NHL deal.
And he's 57.
37.
Yeah, okay.
I was going to say,
this is the unbelievable story, though.
So some of the notable names from this one, I'll just go through the forwards for the one tournament. Justin Azevedo, Gilbert Brulé, Brandon Buck, Kevin Clark, Andrew Ebbett, Bud Holliday, Rob Klinkhammer was in the NHL, Brandon Cozen used to be in the NHL, Ben Maxwell, Brandon McMillan, Eric O'Dell, and then a couple former NHL players in Daniel Paille, Mason Raymond, Max Talbot, and Lyndon Vey.
I mean, look, I think it's going to be a competitive tournament. I just think in terms of engagement, I'm unsure at the interest because I know what Canadians are like. And because it's a tournament of this nature where all of a sudden it's not their best, and if they don't win, I don't think anyone's going to give a shit. I don't think anyone cares. Everyone's going to go, it's not our best, so we'll just pass the vinegar, put it on our French fries, whatever it is. But I think they're going to be fine with it, which means I don't know what the buy-in factor is going to be with this country in this tournament.
No, at least for me, if it's a good team, I'll try and do my best to watch some games. But if they're not doing well, then, I watched the last time I watched the Spengler Cup was the lockout year because they had all the NHL players over there. Sure. So if it's a good team and they're doing well in the tournament, I'll probably turn it on. But like you were saying before, if they're not a good team and they're playing Latvia at 4 in the morning, I'm not getting up to watch it.
We shouldn't use Latvia. Thank you so much. That's roast beef corner. Watch it, and he goes away. There we go. He goes back on to the switch. That happens when you're a two-man show. This is the kind of excitement that you get. Looking at some of the tweets here this morning, what is on your mind? Wow, there's someone has actually got a screen capture of Joanne again. Wow. Some lady licking potatoes, the highlight so far. There's a lot of Joanne, the stuff that's going on right here. Maybe we can't say what's going on, but we sure are having a lot of fun. I got a big announcement I'm going to make tomorrow. Now, Mike Moore, who is now, I believe, now I want to make sure what. He's moved up the ranks too, also in the Flames organization. But Ryan Thelwell, who you know from the BC Lions and of course here in Calgary, we've got another announcement we're going to make tomorrow as well. And that should be interesting. We'll see, exactly when it comes to this weekend. But all those going to the ceremony for the Stamps were Doug Flutie talking about the 92 team. That's going to be pretty awesome as well. So I look forward to that. And do we have any more? Sorry, I'm just taking a look at some of the bombs going off on Twitter. No, I think I'll leave some of that for now. As again, we've had a blast. Now, if I'm going to play a slot machine for those people out there, and I know we can't get a picture of some of the people very busy working. What's a good slot machine? Is it that Zeus? Is it? God, there's one that looks like what does it say? Where the blonde-haired girl won? What is that? That looks weird. What's it called? Golden Goddess? Oh, that's wrong. I don't even want to know what the pictures look like on that one. What happens when you pull down on that stick? I don't know. I mean, the slot world is a weird world. You know, there are some people who actually believe, and there's a guy who wrote a book on the kinds of slot machines that you're supposed to use because it tells you where you're going to win, and the guy actually does win. I have a friend of mine who read that book. He actually did win stuff. Like I'm saying, like he's won at least $3,000 on a slot machine. Of course, he spent 10. There's always that. Any other news I want to hit before we take off today? Because tomorrow, once again, going to be a very busy show. If you want to see some of the CFL picks in all seriousness, I love the picks that Victor Newman made. You will go to, obviously, rawmickrichards.com, but make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel to get all the little moments, all the little breaks. I think the Darren Tradition phone call, that will be on there as well. So just make sure you do that. That way you won't miss a thing. Like Stephen Perry saying in that beautiful song that he didn't write. Boy, they're really filling up on that slot machine today. You got to. I mean, you know what? I think we need a slot camera tomorrow. Can we do that? Do we have a three shot? I think we really need to show what's going on here. Some of them. Okay, I'm not even going to get into it, but it's safe to say there's an interesting look happening here in the casino. Slot camera. That's what we need.
Become best friends.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to go do karate in the garage? Yep.
It is time. I'd like to thank Sean Hope Ross, fitness trainer to the stars. I wonder if he prescribes someone drinking beer while you're working out. What's wrong with that? Get off our backs. Everyone's so pissy these days. Look at me trying hard. Look at me making out with myself. Can you tell I'm going to play the slots. That's what's going on now. Oh my God, I'm so excited right now. And I'm still going to go to the pool. That's a nice look. Excited and going to a pool. Won't be a first. Join me tomorrow on rawmickrichards.com from the Elbow River Casino.